Welcome, everybody. My name is Dina Gentili. I am a professor of sport management at Endicott College. We have a bachelor's degree in sport management, and 3 years ago, we added an esports management minor to our offerings. I hope the information shared through this presentation gives each of you insight on the growth of a new discipline, the evolution of esports as an industry with opportunities and potential for our sport management students, and prompt some idea generation on how to add or include esports courses, minors, or majors into your existing programs. The landscape of what most have previously experienced as sport is evolving with the emergence of a new category of sport, esports. With the popularity of electronic gaming, society is experiencing a new segment of sport participation and sports spectating. The newest sector of sport has surfaced as technology, coupled with the thrill of competition, merged to join forces. The launch of electronic gaming can only be classified as one of the most influential and far-reaching genres of the decade. Video gaming started the esports discipline. Video gaming includes all types of digital games that can be played and used on any type of screen, including arcade machines, handheld devices, game consoles, and personal computers. The rapid popularity and growth of esports, commonly referenced as electronic sports, has given way to a new type of classification and definition for what we commonly associate with sports. Esports can also be defined as organized video game competitions. The popularity and appeal of electronic sports is undeniable. Nonetheless, there is not a universally accepted definition of electronic sports to date. Without clarity, undoubtedly, the debate as to how to categorize video gaming as a sport persists. However, a working definition, which I have come to utilize, describes esports as competitive in the pro and amateur ranks video gaming that is often coordinated by different leagues, ladders, and tournaments, and where players customarily belong to teams or other sporting organizations which are sponsored by various business organizations. Researchers articulate that competitive computer gaming can be labeled as electronic sports or esports. Even the characterization of the term for electronic sports is not widely accepted, as a variety of expressions like esports, as I have it here underlined, or esports with a capital S for sports, or e-sport exist, all serving to classify the same concept that is electronic sports. However, a universal and overarching theme has emerged through my own research in writing an esports textbook that the classification for electronic sports should be written as such with ESPORTS versus the other variations with a hyphenation or an uppercase S. Nicholas Bizombes is a researcher in esports, and I had the privilege to interview him for my textbook. He provides a more expansive look at esports over time from 1970 to current times. He highlights the shift from arcade play in the 1970s to home consoles in the 1980s to the thrust of gaming being launched and widely consumed due to the injection of the internet and personal computers. In the 80s, we started to experience tournaments based on the popular arcade games like Space Invaders and Pac-Man. Atari sponsored the first esports competition on record with Space Invaders. As we continue down the timeline, the esports starts to take a stronger hold as the industry becomes more structured or professionalized. Adding to the growth is the acceptance of popular game titles like Street Fighter, StarCraft, and Counter-Strike. When we fast forward in the decade 2010 to 2020, we can see the injection of mobile devices, streaming platforms like Twitch and YouTube, along with the popularization of the game title League of Legends. The industry experiences an influx of endemic, which are esports specific companies, and non-endemic companies, those that are not directly involved with esport products and services, investing in esports. which all adds to the global reach and popularity of gaming at the professional, amateur, scholastic, and recreational levels. The great debate regarding esports relates to its classification as a sport. In all of my discussions with industry professionals and review of literature within the young academic discipline of esports, it was clear there will always be doubters. But the similarities as showcased on this slide prove that the same elements present within traditional sports from youth to professional settings exist within and are mirrored in esports in the same fashion. Athletes are gamers who play as individuals or join teams from grassroots programming to professional levels. Competitions can be informal against friends online or for large sums of prize pool money or for rankings. It takes skills and hours of training to compete within esports similar to traditional sports. Coaches and nutritionists are also part of the esports landscape. Spectators, fans, or esports enthusiasts are consuming esports at tremendous rates, which I will share with you later on in the presentation. Many leagues exist within amateur, scholastic, collegiate, and professional settings. Rules are set by organizers. Venues are being constructed to meet the demand of practicing game sites for teams and programs. Governing bodies are becoming even more present in esports to create uniformity and regulatory policies. The intangibles similar to traditional sports relate to the entertainment appeal and attraction of electronic sports from a participant and spectator perspective, along with the emotions of competition. The esports ecosystem is quite intriguing. An ecosystem is a network of entities that interact and influence each other. Similar, these entities thrive off of each other and can also impact each other. The analysis of these unique intertwined forces within the esports system sheds light on the power and impact each group has on the industry. Publishers have great influence as they own the games within this system. Unlike traditional sports, the NFL does not own football. Publishers are the owners of the games, which are their intellectual properties, and they own the rights to those games. Events certainly are a driving force to the popularity of esports. With prize pools ballooning, there is increased visibility of gamers through events and the operation of successful streaming of events, which is another revenue stream within esports. Teams, there are so many game titles within esports, and teams are formulated based on the skill set within those specific games. Certainly with the growth of an industry that can reach new and existing markets, breaking through the marketing clutter, we are seeing many more endemic sponsors that want to be associated with esports. And we also are seeing non-endemic sponsors that are trying to fully activate opportunities within the esports space. Both types of sponsors are fully immersed in the esports industry. The phenomenon of esports is global. Esports is over a $1 billion industry in 2020, following the business model of traditional professional sports leagues, complete with highly paid players, sponsors, advertising, media rights, ticket sales, and merchandise. I want to emphasize the importance of understanding that esports requires the same skill set as a sport manager and athletic administrator. Esports are sports, and our program of studies can easily encapsulate the academic side of this growing field and industry. Game developers and publishers hold a great deal of influence holding the rights to the games played. Additionally, the esports audience comprised of global participants are highly engaged consumers, and brands associated with esports are seeing positive results through marketing efforts. Again, to highlight the impact of the esports, it's important to note the revenue generation coming from similar types of sources as traditional sports, lending to total revenue of $1.1 billion in 2020. In addition, esports has been largely immune to COVID-19 due to its prompt transition to online formats and a spike in interest as traditional sports has halted some operations. I do want to add endemic sponsors are those that are associated with esports due to the use of or integration of their products or services into esports activities. Non-endemic sponsors offer products and services that are not directly related in esports activities, but you can see that taking advantage of sponsorship opportunities is certainly a large portion of the revenue generation within the esports industry. Is esports as popular as traditional sports? Yes. Is esports as big as traditional sports? Yes. In terms of viewership and the impact of streaming in sports, we will have more viewers than Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, National Hockey League, and Major League Soccer. When we review the esports ecosystem, events was a major stakeholder, proof of the influence that event operation is surely moving the popularity of esports across the United States. And although some may still hesitate to consider esports a true sport, it's impossible to ignore the rise in popularity around the globe and within this country. Where there are viewers, there's certainly money. As depicted on the last slide, revenue from sponsorships in terms of media and advertising totaled $1.1 billion in 2020. The mainstream sports industry is also taking notice of the popularity of esports. Esports, in my estimation, is an area of focus which can easily be incorporated into our sport management offerings. The competencies of sport management and the operations of teams, leagues, governance bodies, marketing all fall under our expertise as faculty. Esports is certainly unique. However, our knowledge base as educators and through our connections to professionals in the field can help grow this new arm of sport management and athletic administration. Many of our students enroll in sport management because they played sports or were talented athletes. The same holds true in esports management. Esports is part of the culture of the students we work with. As more and more students start teams at their high schools or middle schools, there will be a tendency for these students to explore career options within the esports domain. Industry statistics, as we explored, point to this growth as well. Again, as esports takes traction as a participant sport with increased appeal to esports enthusiasts, this becomes an opportunity for educators within sport management to develop this discipline even further. Always at the forefront of decisions to add programming are the opportunities afforded to students. Similar to traditional sports, students are needed as esports organizers, strategists in terms of data analytics and engagement of fans, content creation within streaming and fan development, along with the ability to develop business opportunities, including corporate relations and sponsorship activations. This is such an impressive graphic representing the opportunities for our students in terms of professional positions within esports. This graphic illustrates the professionalization and competencies required by students or future professionals in the field of esports management. Now, when I zoom into the central part of that diagram, we can see the core elements of esports are related to administration, business, sales, marketing, communication, information and technology, event management, media, and entertainment, all settings we probably already cover in our sport management programming. From that graphic, I did extract the growth potential of the esports domain. Each of these areas listed on this slide could be standalone presentation topics under the esports umbrella, which again showcases the potency and reach of esports and the need for esports managers and esports professionals within this growing industry. All of these roles are present in multiple settings, from grassroots to scholastic to college to the professional ranks. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a photo of me enjoying esports with the U.S. Army team who visited our campus last March. If you have any questions or would like to collaborate on future projects, please reach out. Thank you.
Well, welcome to the Q&A session for Esports Management and Emerging Discipline by Dina Gentile. Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Gentili, but I answer to everything.
Okay. Yeah, so in the chat section, I have the instructions for if you have a question. Follow those. It'll just be type your name and your affiliation, and then first come, first serve. I'll introduce you and you can ask your question. But yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Well, I guess I'll just start with a little bit of an introduction. So I've been at Endicott College for, I think it's 27 years now, and I've been in the sport management program, and we added a coaching minor when I first started, and then it's kind of been that we've been expanding courses and really enhancing all the courses we have under our sport management umbrella. And then esports came on the scene, and Alyssa Zarnecki is also a colleague of mine at Endicott. And we put our heads together and we decided to start an esports minor. And it's taken off. And when I say taken off, it doesn't mean there's, we have 100 students enrolled in our minor or anything like that, but it's taken off in terms of us making a mark in the industry through contacts that are happening just through our research efforts. And I'm actually writing a textbook in esports management. And I've been able to reach out to a lot of industry professionals. And I've been so surprised at how welcoming they are to a newbie like myself, and how open they are to really explaining what they are doing in their particular space within this larger umbrella, which is esports. So that's why I really thought I'd bring this topic to all of us, because I really think this is a chance for us to grab hold of a new domain. And it also rejuvenated me, and I'm really energized by all of the information that I've been collecting for my textbook and also for teaching the courses that we have in the minor. And I just thought really this session here could be just to give you information on how we got started, and maybe some content areas that you could bring to your own programming. But like I said, I think the esports domain fits into what we do. And I'm a little bit territorial, to be honest with you, in terms of where esports should fit. And I know that, we're going to get pressure from communications and computer science folks and things like that. But I think we can really create a little bit of a specialty area under our sport management umbrella. So I guess that's my introduction, and I welcome any questions or feedback. Well, I'll also add to my introduction one more thing, is LinkedIn has been unbelievable for me in terms of meeting folks in the esports space. Esports professionals are on LinkedIn more than I think any industry segment. I basically just put out a little message that I'm writing a textbook and looking to feature professionals in the field. And from that, I mean, I've hundreds of contacts now. I have over 50 interviews that I've recorded through Zoom, which also is a really fun project. But that's something that I also brought into the classroom for the students in sport management and esports, is really to how to utilize LinkedIn in a field that is new. And we have a chance to really build on that.
So I should know the answer to this, but I don't. So one of the things that we kind of faced, right, is that people were asking, well, if you're majoring in sport management, is it also worth minoring in esport management? Or is all of that stuff kind of embedded within the courses? And yeah, I mean, some courses should definitely have, just like we talk about all different types of sport leagues, we should also be talking about esport. But we want to be mindful about, people not getting the same information. Although sometimes that's not a bad idea for our students. So what are you doing in your intro level class specifically, and or in your org and ad class specifically, to kind of touch upon esport, but not in the level of detail that you go into your intro to esport management class?
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought there would be a lot of overlap. And I found that really there's so much content in esports that it is truly its separate specialization. So just like we have a little bit of overlap with business management to sport management, like why should I major in sport management? I think you'll find always that that's going to be an issue. But what I found, the way I start my esports intro class is basically going through what is esports, how is it similar to traditional sports at the collegiate, scholastic, professional levels, but then how is it really different? And I think the distinction is what makes the program important for us to continue to expand upon under our domain, because one story that, a professional in the field that I spoke with, he basically said the NFL doesn't own football. They can't just change the rules. But in esports, publishers own the titles, and the rules are changing all the time. And so that dynamic and that power and that influence is unique to esports. And our students need to understand that level in terms of the publishers playing a large role. And we don't have that true control in sport management. So there are going to be similarities in terms of the operations side of running an esports team. But again, it's the growth period. So there's a lot of things that there's a lot of takeaways that our students can get from being in sport management and also minoring or taking classes in esports. I think the projects that we incorporate into the classes are different in terms of revenue stream and the different companies that are associated with esports, the power of sponsorships, even though it's very high in professional sports, it's even higher in esports. Streaming is a whole new world now, which I think our students can be exposed to through the esports domain as well. So hopefully I answered your question, Alyssa.
Yeah. Do you have like I envision, you being able to, once you're finishing like the book, you be able to kind of recommend, if you're teaching sport governance and policy or sport finance, here's a lesson or a unit you could include about esport. If you don't have a larger minor or a whole class focused on that, here's a unit that you could use so that you're covering that area, because it is so new.
Absolutely. I think we need to tailor the things that we're utilizing. But the thing about esports too, it's ever changing. As the rules change, as the game titles become more popular, as more high school teams emerge, our students are also becoming smarter in this space. In fact, they'll probably be teaching us a lot of new information as well. So I think we're going to have a trickle down effect or trickle up effect, because the students we're recruiting to our sport management programs might have started their own esports team, competed at the professional levels, because we have to remember esports is not governed by the NCAA. So players at the collegiate level can earn prize money. They could be professionals, they can be ranked. So it's a different type of regulation, which also is a distinction, esports versus collegiate athletics.
Can you say more about your connection to the high schools? Are you providing some content to them? And not in an exchange, but in an effort to partner with them and hope for recruitment, let's say to Endicott or to your program?
There are a lot of startup companies, grassroots companies that are actually developing a curriculum for high schools, and they are selling those things to high schools, which is phenomenal. So I've basically learned about some of the partnerships that exist. One area that Endicott that we actually have been doing is partnering with private companies that are platforms for youth and recreational programs. So we just had someone who just started a company called Vanta, and he provides a platform for single players or full team esports teams to basically sign on to his platform for a fee. They provide coaching and tournament play. And some of our students actually are interning with his company right now as coaches and also behind the scenes for operations. So I think there's just so many different tiers. I think every school that starts an esports program or courses from the academic perspective will find the connections that they secure will probably guide the types of internships also for their students. But I think, one thing I have found through talking to the professionals in the field is that we've got to stay away from the projects that are the same projects that every college is doing. Like, okay, everyone wants to start an esports tournament as a project. What else is there? And to think deeper about what happens in the industry. I think that's going to make our students have a different interest in what they can learn and then what they could take to their professions. But we have to remember the NBA is supporting esports. So all the professional leagues now have that new arm, an extension to what their current product or services are. So we need to grow with the professional sports teams as well. Anybody else out there?
Does anybody else in here have classes or minors or majors?
We do at Northeastern. We just added esports.
Is it
It's
a minor or a major
The certification in a
certification?
master's program.
Right. You know, one of the things, one big takeaway for me is content development, and having our students really put their individualized mark on the industry. And content development could be creating a new game. It could be blogging about things. It could be just a presence on Twitch or eFuse. So there's just so many opportunities for our students to create their own brand. I think that's something that was a really important takeaway for me, is because a lot of students want to get into esports, but again, it's just like sport management. It's very attractive, it's very appealing, but setting yourself apart from everyone else is really part of that content development piece that we should be pushing in esports. So everyone having their own basically brand. I also spoke with a woman who owns a company and in marketing, but she deals with influencers. And I thought that was like so eye-opening to me as well. So she works with a lot of personalities in esports and endemic brands and branding and all of the messaging that goes along with it. I think that's a whole nother area for our students to get into, because they really are the experts of social media. So I found that to be a focal area. It's just bigger than marketing, and there's a lot of opportunities to sell within esports. So there's the companies that are coming in from a different perspective than we're seeing in from just sponsoring a professional sports team. There's just different interactions with the consumer base, and knowing that the consumers of esports are much younger demographic, but the hope is they invest now in esports, and as those gamers age up and start to build their careers, they'll remember the sponsorship from BMW and the lucrative, more expensive product lines that are associated with esports.
Chris Amos here. So do any of your students try to get into like the coaching or mentoring side of it? I know places like St. James outside of DC, they have an entire program where literally parents will pay thousands of dollars for their kids to go learn how to play Fortnite and become experts. So are your students interested in that side of it at all, or more so on the marketing side?
Well, I think it's wide open right now, but I do have a student who signed on with that company, Vanta, and he actually is going to be a coach. But one aspect in terms of coaching the esports titles is the rules are always changing. And so you really need to be well versed in the actual game, and also stay current with the pulse of how that game is evolving and changing. So the publishers are always keeping esports professionals on their toes. And and I did, one of my questions is, well, how hard is it to recruit coaches? It's very difficult to recruit coaches. It's very difficult to have a staff of coaches depending on how many titles you have in your esports program. So if you're running a collegiate team, it's not one team. It's every title has a team. And so we would assume that there's going to be a coach for every game that these athletes are playing in, but that's not necessarily the case. So this is where a lot of times they are relying on the students to kind of be the information distribution for everything else that's happening in that title. So it's really complex. So, even if you coach soccer, yeah, you probably can pick up and coach, lacrosse or something like that, but you're not going to know the tactics and the strategies that someone would that's immersed in the game. So I think it's definitely another segment of esports in terms of coaching. And we have a coaching certification for traditional sports. I see that also just incorporating folks who want to be coaches in esports. Because like you said, parents want a schedule. So they want the practices twice a week and then the games on the weekend, just like Little League. And so that's going to be definitely a trend that we see.
So we know, having maybe have had experience as a youth athlete, high school athlete, a college athlete, we know the skills that we take from playing the game, whether we were good at it or not. We know what we have taken with us throughout our life that we got from sport. Are you finding that kids participating, are their skills similar in nature? Are they unique? Are they different? Come across anything like that?
You know, one thing that really resonated with me is the inclusion aspect of esports. So there's a lot of young people who never want to play traditional sports, or might not be big enough, fast enough, or just not talented enough. And so they never really had a chance to be part of the team experience. And esports has taken that space and filled that gap for a lot of young people who now have found a home and have, you know, are experiencing the camaraderie, the mentoring from a coach, the school spirit with the jerseys. So it's really changed what we're seeing in terms of, you know, I think gamers have always had like a bad rap. Okay, they're in the basement, they're playing for hours. It's different now. It's out in the forefront. I mean, there are teams, there are teams that are, the games are streamed. The school spirit is very high. And to be honest with you, the schools that had esports programs before the pandemic were able to engage the students at a higher rate than those that did not. And those that were just ready to start their esports program and never got a chance to were kicking themselves, because during the pandemic, I mean, it was just like a switch. Okay, we're not in person, but we still have this opportunity to engage with our student body. So it definitely fills a gap. So yes, I mean, I think there are definitely similarities between team sports at the traditional level and team sports in esports. I mean, I'm excited to see where all of this goes to, because I do think we're at the beginning stages with a minor at Endicott College, but there's certainly many people writing textbooks now on esports. I'm not the only one. You know, there's a few that are out there right now. I think it's going to create a body of knowledge, and then we can, you know, I think the program will evolve, and the courses that we teach and the projects that we utilize will evolve as we start to become a little bit more familiar with the operations of esports. But I don't think it's beyond our skill set as faculty in sport management to make that transition at all.
Just a curiosity question for you. I know we'll get prospective parents that'll always then ask the time, well, what can my son or daughter do with this degree? Have you gotten a lot of those questions, even though this is only a minor? And how have you found those conversations have gone? Have parents been receptive to their children doing this as a minor, or do they see this as kind of some niche thing that they're like, oh, I don't really know about that?
I think parents know more than we think now, because I think they've appreciated gaming during the pandemic. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they've been able to hear what the interactions and the socialization that gaming gave to people. You know, when we went remote, the kids were on their headsets and they were playing and they stayed engaged. I think parents are appreciating that social piece now. I think the media attention to esports has changed perceptions about this being an industry that's lucrative and here to stay. You know, in speaking to some of the folks who have started collegiate programs or high school programs, the conversations are changing now with administrators, because administrators are, you know, dealing with their own children who are playing esports, but just the exposure and the visibility has changed the way folks are embracing esports. But one project it's not even a project, but it's basically just a fact finding in my classes is I have the students list out positions in esports just as an exploration. And it's so eye-opening because they don't realize what's out there, but I let them dig for it, and then they'll select a few professionals that they want to research a little bit more. And like I said, there's just a wealth of information out there through LinkedIn and other platforms, because esports is so, you know, electronic. It's there, so the information is for the taking. So, you know, we, you know, and Alyssa, you can speak to this too. We haven't had any pushback. I think it's more like, oh wow, you have esports. That's so innovative. I think it's more of a positive than anything else.
And it's been a way for us to attract students in other majors. So, because we don't have a sport management minor, so it's been a way for really to allow us to let other people across campus like into our world. So that's and some have been like, oh, what this is a major. I could actually study this. I can go to school for this. So that's been cool.
And we're a very small school with a robust sport management program, but there's only what do we have 6 full-time faculty, something like that, 7 full-time faculty. And we've certainly been approached by other departments on campus because now they're interested in it because they see the growth potential. But we're taking more of a management perspective and operations perspective and athletics perspective on the courses that we believe are important to complement our major and also to expand the resume and portfolio of students across different majors.
Pam, are you teaching in your classes or in the minor or?
No, we have somebody who works in esports who's teaching.
Cool.
He works over at Gillette.
Right, and we do. I mean, that's a great example. Helix Esports is, in our backyard, and everyone will be surprised. There's an esports something in our location for our students to kind of tap into. But Helix has been great to us. We've had some guest speakers as well. And that's the thing. I think esports professionals like to talk about what they're doing. They're accustomed to being, on the screen. So Zoom, for me, the silver lining of really a pandemic is being able to bring in so many folks from across the globe. Even, I've interviewed people from Africa, France, all parts of the globe because we can now. And so I think that will also be that could also be an important segment of any esports course or program. It's an exciting time. I mean, I think we can develop whatever we want in it. We could take an operations perspective. We can, athletics and from high school to college. I mean, there's so many different extensions. I think it just depends on the expertise of the faculty or what they want to engage in.
Invest in the stock market.
Invest in the stock market, right? I mean, these gamers are controlling the stock market. So it's just fantastic to see. I mean, it's like I said, like our students are very well versed in esports. And so the conversations I feel are very deep in the classroom. And I also sense that they feel very confident talking about their experiences as gamers or their experiences with content development, because that's what they've been doing behind the scenes. And now they have
surprises them. It surprises them that when we're like, yeah, that's sport management. I mean, it almost surprises them.
It was a hobby. Like, so juniors and seniors who are in my class, this was a hobby for them. And now they're realizing, wow, I can make a career out of this. But the confidence when they're explaining whatever the content area or topic or discussion points that they're presenting, the confidence is there. It's a different level because this is what they've been doing for, 10 years. It's something that they're very familiar with, and they can speak the language and really share with a little bit more of a knowledge base. So Chris, are you planning on starting an esports course or a major?
So we're in the school business where we're at, and they have within computer science and business, which are both here, they have a video game cognate, essentially development cognate, that combines some of the classes, and something we've considered potentially getting involved in some way with that. We know there's a lot of student interest. I guess our issue is faculty expertise in that area. We don't really have it, and so that would be our big apprehension just as far as diving into it.
Well, like I said in my presentation, I think we all are well versed in sponsorships, in marketing, in branding. The operations piece is just a really an exciting kind of area that you can focus in on too. It's bigger than running a tournament because you're dealing with streaming, you're dealing with ranked teams, you're dealing with a lot of platforms that traditional sports are not utilizing. The ECAC, I've been able to talk to folks at the ECAC too, and they've provided so much great information about what they do and it's intense. You know, we say sport management is 24/7, esports is 24/7 plus. I mean, gamers are up at all hours, and releasing certain, dropping notes is what they call it, dropping their notes, to kind of share what's going on with particular games or personalities is something that they look forward to. So it's just another branch of marketing and advertising too.
I showed a video of people, it was from, I don't know, maybe a decade ago, but people were lining up. It was like sometime in December, lining up outside of like, GameStop or like waiting to get into the door. And it just seems so foreign to people. But it's, it's been around.
Yes.
And I think people are surprised about that too.
Definitely.
Well, and I think even, I don't know if you guys experienced this in your programs, but the other day when they announced the NCAA video games were coming back, that was all the students were talking about. I mean, up and down the hallways, it was the only subject that was being discussed. So it just shows you how big it is. Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think there are a lot of folks coming in from the computer science perspective, but they're going to need us. They're going to need the bridge, basically. And athletes also are so young. Professional athletes are young. They're teenagers now. So the regulations and are much different than for a regular professional athlete. But now we're dealing with teens who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they might not be the best gamers either. But they have an excellent brand. And that's what's selling in esports. So you need to have talent, but you also need to have a personality to sell the product line as well. So it really is interesting. And I think it's just going to keep evolving as more titles become popular. And again, like I said, young people are playing these games, 8, 9, 10-year-olds are playing these games, and they're eventually going to want to major in something that they love. And it just like sport management, right?
Okay, we
Have
only
you
have a
guys
few more
read about the
minutes.
grandma?
Oh.
There's several, but there was one in particular. She's like 70 some years old who plays these games big time and streams her gaming and all that kind of stuff. She has a huge following.
Well, Pam, streaming that's the thing. Anybody can stream now. Like, I'm streaming my son's basketball games on Instagram Live. Like, who would have thought I'd be doing something like that, right?
She's profiting from it.
Right, I know, but that's what I mean. But that's the whole thing.
Monetize
Is
it.
like it's an amazing enterprise, and the tools that the pandemic has forced us to use tools we never thought we would use before. But gamers and folks in esports have been doing this for years. So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the characters.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for joining me. And if you have any questions, feel free, reach out. I'm just dgentili@endicott.edu. So hope to see you in other sessions.
Thank you.
Thanks.